Calling this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee to order. I do detect a quorum with 12 committee members present. And with that, we will go ahead and start our meeting. Pursuant to Council Rule 28, the public comment period at committee meetings is limited to items that appear on the committee agenda. We do have one person speaking, Mr. Steve Ryder, who wants to speak on RS 2024-536. And Mr. Ryder, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'd like to, on this thing on the Salvation Army, I'd like to strike section D7 on page 4. It says media interaction. I'll read it. It says any media events or news releases connected to any work contemplated or performed relative to this grant contract must be approved and coordinated through the Office of Homeless Services Metro Nashville Government Communications Representative prior to engagement, airing, or distribution. This to me is a classic prior restraint, and that's unconstitutional. This is not the sort of business that we should be involved in at all. Having Office of Homeless Service basically pre-approved material, no. The media should be allowed to do their job, and people should be allowed to freely speak. Unfortunately, Metro Legal has, I think, a pattern and practice of trying to silence people. I think there's all sorts of cases. What comes to mind, Amy Frog with the school board, and there's other ones, but we don't need to be doing this. So I'm respectfully asking that D7 be stricken from this resolution. Also, on page 2, paragraph 1, line 3, it says licensed Master of Social Worker, licensed counselor. I would like that to read licensed clinical social worker. I think we're entitled to have somebody who's competent and capable for that assignment. Just having somebody who has a Master of Social Work to me is insufficient. I think what we really need is a licensed clinical social worker. So I'm asking that be amended for that. I could say more, but I think I'll leave it at that right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ryder. And with that, we will go ahead and go to the consent agenda. Colleagues, the following items are on the consent agenda. If you have something that you would like bumped, please let me know. Currently on the consent agenda, we have RS 2024 Just kidding. All right, we have RS 2024-524, RS 2024-525, RS 2024-526, RS 2024-528, RS 2024-529, RS 2024-530, RS 2024-531, RS 2024-532, RS 2024-533, RS 2024-534, RS 2024-535, RS 2024-537, RS 2024-538, RS 2024-539, RS 2024-540, RS 2024-541, RS 2024-542, RS 2024-545, RS 2024-546, RS 2024-547, BL 2024-393, BL 2024-348, and BL 2024-376. Colleagues, just as a reminder, if you are on the Budget and Finance Committee, please put up your yellow committee card so that we can identify you. And with that, do we have 348 will not be on the consent agenda. Thank you so much. BL 2024-348 is not on the consent agenda. And with that, do we have anything else that anyone would like to bump? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to remove RS 2024-532.
Okay, 532 is off of the consent agenda. Anything else, Councilmember Allen? Okay, is there anything else that anyone would like to bump from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I will read the captions for the items on the consent agenda. RS 2024-524, Porterfield, Welsh, Ellis, Allen approves the application for an adult treatment court program grant from the United States Department of Justice to the General Sessions Court to expand and enhance the operation of current adult recovery court model. RS 2024-525, Porterfield, Welsh, Allen approves the Amendment 1 to a grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Department of Finance to provide public assistance for damage caused by severe storms, tornadoes, and flooding during the March 25th to April 3rd, 2021 disaster. RS 2024-526, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others approves a sole source contract between the Metropolitan Action Commission and UTJ Holdco Incorporated in doing business as Teaching Strategies LLC for the provision of research-based birth through kindergarten educational assessment software. RS 2024-528, Porterfield, Welsh, Allen, and Coupin accepts a donation of 95 sets of furniture from the Nashville Office Interiors to the Department of General Services for use in the Strobel Permanent Supportive Housing Center. RS 2024-529, Porterfield, Stylesville, and others approves Amendment 1 to the Public Library Wishing Chair Productions grant from the National Public Library Foundation to the National Public Library to provide puppeteers that help with education outreach by providing puppet shows to daycare centers, elementary schools, and Head Start facilities. RS 2024-530, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and Ellis approves a contract between the Metropolitan Board of Health and the American Public University to provide clinical and non-clinical experience opportunities for its students. RS 2024-531, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, Ellis approves a contract between the Metropolitan Board of Health and the University of Tennessee to provide clinical experience opportunities for its students. RS 2024-533, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and Ellis approves Amendments 1 and 2 to a grant from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Board of Health to implement foundational capabilities to build organizational resilience, promote employee well-being, and enhance workforce performance while focusing on healthier communities. RS 2024-534, Porterfield, Evans, Vogt, and others approves Amendments 2 and 3 to the Strengthening Public Health Infrastructure, Workforce, and Data Systems Grant from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Board of Health to implement workforce strategies to build organizational resilience, promote employee well-being, and enhance workforce performance while focusing on building healthier communities. RS 2024-535, Porterfield, Evans, and Welsh approves Amendment 5 to a Community Health Workers for Public Health Response and Resilient Grant from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Board of Health to address COVID-19 health disparities in the national area. RS 2024-537, Ewing, Porterfield, Stiles, and Welsh accepts a grant from the Friends of Warner Park to the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to continue funding staff positions and copier rental costs. RS 2024-538, Ewing, Porterfield, Stiles, and others accepts a grant from the Friends of Warner Park to the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to provide seasonal staffing for the Special Work Education and Trails, or SWITS, program at Warner Parks. RS 2024-539, Sims, Porterfield, Gamble, Soror approves an agreement for the purchase of a parcel of property near the intersections of Youngs Lane and Baptist World Center Drive for a new fire station. RS 2024-540, Porterfield, Evans, and Ellis accepts the terms of a cooperative purchase and master agreement for training management software at the National Fire Department. RS 2024-541, Porterfield, Evans, Welsh, and others accepts the Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG, for the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Office of Emergency Management to subsidize the Emergency Management Program. RS 2024-542, Porterfield, Evans approves the application for a port security grant from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to the Office of Emergency Management to improve the detection, deterrence, prevention, and response to hazards of the Port of Nashville. RS 2024-545, Coupon, Porterfield, Gamble, and Porterfield approves a participation agreement between the Metropolitan Department of Water and Sewage Services and Split Rock Development to provide water service improvements for Split Rock's proposed development, as well as other existing properties in the area. RS 2024-546, Porterfield, Gamble, and Parker approves a participation agreement between the Department of Water and Sewage Services and Metro Nashville Airport Authority to provide water services improvements for MNAA's proposed development, as well as other existing properties in the area. RS 2024-547, Welsh, Porterfield, and Gamble approves an option agreement authorizing the purchase of property located at 334 Woody Crest Avenue. BL 2024-393, Welsh, Porterfield, Gamble, and others approves a lease agreement by and between the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Nashville Tools for School. And BL 2024-376, Porterfield, Bradford, Ellis, and Gadd. I'm going to bump this one from consent, you all. So that is everything on our consent agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to have bumped from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Consent agenda passes, 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The first 3 items on the agenda will be taken up after the budget. So we will go ahead to the next item not on the consent agenda, which is item number 7. RS 2024-527, Porterfield, Evans, Vogt, and others, approves a grant from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency to the Metropolitan Action Commission to be used for emergency rental assistance in accordance with the purposes set forth in Section 3201 of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 to provide financial assistance and housing stability services to eligible tenants. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick question. Does this include any kind of financial literacy training for the people who are awarded the funding?
Do we have anyone here that can speak to that question? We do have someone in the back. Come on up. And if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Marvin Cox. I'm the Community Outreach Director for Metropolitan Action Commission. As part of the grant, no, but as part of our coaching with individuals that come into our agency, we do talk to them about financial literacy. We also look at other wraparound services within the family as it relates to early education, which we provide, workforce development. So we're just not looking on a one-time basis. We're working with them to reach their full potential. So yes, ma'am, as part of that conversation, we are speaking with our customers in that regard.
Thank you so very much, Councilor Allen. Thank you. Do we have any additional questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item that's not on the consent agenda is RS 2024-532, Porterfield, Evans, Vogt, and others. Approves Amendment 9 to a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to the Metropolitan Board of Health for the ongoing collection of data on ambient air concentrations for fine particulate matter in Nashville, Tennessee. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just had one question. It looks like this report requires some kind of evaluation that may be something new. I'm not entirely sure. But I just want to use the opportunity to say I'm really glad that we have all this data. Health Department used to do a really informative annual report that they have had limited resources for the last couple of years to do, and I would love to encourage them to do that. On the record, and if it requires us to give them another position, I missed the boat this year, but I will be doing that next year if that's what it takes to get that annual report updated since they have not been able to do it since 2016, and it provides a lot of good information about what these pollutants are that are being measured.
Thank you so very much, Councilmember Allen. Do we have Mr. Sharp? Are you able to give me a thumbs up? Are y'all able to take care of that, or will y'all need a new position going forward to do a report? And if you could introduce yourself, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Tom Sharp from the Health Department. I have talked to Mr. Finke, who operates that end of the business. He simply has not had the manpower to get that done. Whether he does now or not would be, I suspect, a no. But I'll talk to him about what it would take in order for him to be able to do that on an annual basis. And I will let you know.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Thank you, Councilor Allen. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, and 0 not voting. The next item that is not on the consent agenda is RS 2024-536, Porterfield, Evans, Vogt, and others, appropriates $464,000 from the Office of Homeless Services to the Salvation Army for the provision of housing services to people experiencing homelessness in Nashville. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. There was a public comment made about, some of the public responses that are given, and sometimes it's just helpful to make sure that there's an official response as opposed to just whoever happened to be contacted. I wonder if there's someone from either Metro Homelessness or the Salvation Army that could just respond to why that phrase was in there and why it seems to be a good idea.
Thank you. We have someone at the podium. If you could just introduce yourself, and then if you could address the question, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Clendenning. I'm the grants coordinator for the Office of Homeless Services. And in regards to the D7, the media interaction, and that was intended just to foster cooperation between the service providers and the Office of Homeless Services. It was never intended to limit anyone.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item not on the consent agenda is RS 2024-543, Porterfield Evans, approved amendment number 1 to contract number 6488663 between Metropolitan Government and Axon Enterprise Incorporated. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And I know we discussed this last meeting, but just wanting to ask again, the funding to change from the 7 to the 10, the department, MMPD is using existing funds, correct?
We have Deputy Chief Gilder in the back joining us. Chief Gilder, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yes, for the first year of the contract, we have identified the funding for that. Obviously, going forward in additional fiscal years, we would make that part of our budget request.
So this current amendment is for FY24, and the request has been made in the FY25 budget to cover the cost of the tape. Is that right?
So there is already money in the this upcoming fiscal year's budget for the TASER 7 expansion program. And so we would only have to make up a difference in funding. I'd have to pull the number up for me. I think it's about $700,000, which we have identified.
Okay. And last question, Chair. So the number of tasers covered under this current contract, that is, 'cause I know in the, going back to the budget book, there was money allocated to go from 1,400 to 1,700 tasers. So will those 1,700 tasers be purchased under this contract that's for this 543 resolution? Or are you still trying to build up to the 17?
So the additional funding that was requested for the expansion is going to be put towards this TASER 10 amendment,
Okay.
which does include an expansion within it. It's not just an upgrade from the 7 to the 10. It includes the expansion as well.
Okay. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Well, I'll go to Councilmember Huffman and then Councilmember Evans Siegel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a quick question in regards to the cost breakdown. I want to get a little bit on more of a granular level so we can just walk through it with my colleagues. My question is, Chair, for probably Deputy Chief Gilder. First off, could he just walk through what the 5-year life of the contract would be, extra on an annual basis, on a per officer basis, and in any way he can break that down, whether it's per month, per day, that would be great.
Deputy Chief Gilder, you're recognized.
Sure. So the proposed TASER 10 contract is for 1,658 officers, and that's about $9,251,000. The TASER 7 with the additional 258 officers is about $6.9 million. So you're looking at about a $2.2 million difference between the two. If you break that down on an annualized basis, you're talking about $457,000 a year. So kind of further breaking that down, it's additional $276 a year per officer, or $23 a month per officer, or 76 cents per officer per day.
Yeah, they're ready, huh, Chief Gilder?
I thought I might get some questions about it.
Councilmember Huffman, you have any additional questions?
No, ma'am, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Evans Siegel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So just those numbers had been emailed to me already. We had also talked after the last budget finance committee, Deputy Gilder and I, and he had mentioned the 700,000 number. And I thought I understood the difference, but if he could just explain the difference between the $700,000 figure and what that is versus this $457,000 figure, I think that would be helpful.
I think the actual number is going to be the $457,000. At the time we spoke, thought it was about $700,000 that was going to be the difference between the two, but this is the actual annualized difference between those two. So, thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, that helps because there were extra numbers and I was a little.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans Siegel. Any additional questions? I have a few, Deputy Chief Gilder. I'm trying to formulate some questions because I'm sitting here, I'm reading the faces of my colleagues, and I saw a couple of confused looks, but I can't formulate some of the questions that I'm perceiving that people may have. But can you speak to, going off of Councilmember Toombs' question with regards to what this does for the current budget that we're in right now today, fiscal year 24, and then what this means for fiscal year 25 budget that we'll be voting on in a few minutes?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question. What do you mean? What does it mean for
The numbers that you gave with regards to Council Lady Toombs' question, the numbers that you gave with how the impact that this has on the budget. Let me ask you this a different way. What would be the impact of deferring this today? Would there be an impact?
I would have to consult with our fiscal division to see. I'm not sure if there's a timing issue with respect to the agreement that's worked out. I know we were trying to get this resolved before the change in the fiscal year, but I would have to check with them.
So we don't know if it will have an adverse impact if this waited on one more meeting.
I would have to double check to see what the fiscal impact would be.
Okay. Council Lady Toombs, you're recognized.
Can we get a response from the administration? Because the fiscal year ends on the 30th of this month.
If we have anyone from the administration table that would like to respond to that.
Deputy Chief Gilder, last time you talked about a credit, and I think that you have the number right in front of you, but I think that's the need for ensuring that it's done in this fiscal year so we can utilize those credits that were part of the contract.
If you could introduce yourself for the viewing
Amanda
audience.
Deaton-Moyer with the Department of Finance.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have the number in front of me. I could find it, but there was about a little under $1 million credit that is a part of the contract agreement that is for allocated on the basis of the transition to turn the 7s back in to switch to the 10s.
So that credit would expire in 2 weeks? Is that what we're thinking?
Well, I think we would want to go ahead and utilize funding that we have for the 7s for the current fiscal year. I believe our fiscal division is kind of anticipating this, has money set aside to make payment and would make payment towards this amended contract before the fiscal year ends. And then everything's in place for the next, again, we've identified the $457,000 gap between what was budgeted and what the cost would be for the amendment for the next fiscal year. And then going forward from there, we would just request within our budget the contract cost on an annual basis.
Thank you. The administration would like to be recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave Rosenberg with the Mayor's Office. To put what Deputy Chief Gilder put another way, there's about $1 million in funding for the rest of the fiscal year. That money is either going to be spent on Taser 7s or Taser 10s, depending on what happens with this resolution tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And I think it's important for the viewing audience to know that for any department, come June 30th, that's the end of the fiscal year, budgets don't roll over. So whatever money is remaining for a department on June 30, on July 1st, it goes into the general fund balance. The department doesn't keep it. And if finance wanted to speak to that. Or someone from
Anyone from finance like to? Councilmember Toombs basically asked for confirmation. She said that the fiscal year ends on June 30th. So if you don't spend your money by June 30th, it goes to the general fund on July 1st. And she just wanted confirmation of that from finance for the purposes of the viewing audience.
Yes,
You're recognized.
thank you, Chair. Mary Jo Wiggins, Finance. That is correct. That unspent budget will fall to the general fund.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know we've had this explained to us several times, but I just need to hear it one more time. I'm looking at the contract amendment information, and it says previous estimated contract life value, $6.5 million. And then it says amendment value, $18 million. New estimated contract life value, $24,805,000.
That's old.
That's old. Okay, so,
Administration, would you all like to address that? Because y'all are not on the mic. So you're,
good. I'm happy to be confused. If you'll unconfuse me,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Councilwoman Allen, I think you're looking at a previous contract amendment that had come before the council last fall, I think. Yeah.
And so you can confirm that instead, what it should say is previous contract life value is 6.5 million, amendment value is that 2 point something that we just heard about, and the amendment and the new estimated contract life is 9.7 million or something close to that.
No, let me get my numbers. I think someone's going to bring up the exact numbers, but the contract amendment is 9.52 million.
Okay, so it is 9.5,
For a
which gets us
total
to
of
15.8
Correct.
million is the new value. Okay, I had that written down. Okay.
thank you. And can we have someone from finance? I believe I read that this contract was considered high risk. Did I read that correctly? No? Okay. By the looks on your faces, I guess I must have gotten that confused. Okay. Any additional questions? Seeing none and seeing no additional motions, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Chair abstains. Motion carries 11 in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention. RS 2024-544, Porterville, Evans, Welsh, and Ellis approves an application for a DNA capacity enhancement for backlog reduction CEBR program grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to the Nashville Police Department Forensic Biology Unit to outsource sexual assault kits to private vendors for forensic case samples analysis to reduce the backlog associated with DNA analysis. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The next item is BL 2024-392, Porterfield, Allen, Toombs, and others amends BL 2016-334, which authorizes the Metropolitan Department of Housing Agency to negotiate and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes from its leases operating low-income housing tax credit properties pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated 13-20-104 and revise the annual amount of abatement authorized for the program. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Bills on third reading. We have BL 2024-38. Councilmember Coopin approves amendments number 8 to the Rutledge Hill redevelopment plan pertaining to certain uses. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. There is a substitute. Would anyone like to move the substitute? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Coopin, I will acknowledge you to address your substitute.
Thank you so much, Chair. This substitute is housekeeping in nature. There were a couple of text changes that were needed, but nothing that changes the substantive nature of the bill, just housekeeping matters.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? All right, the substitute passes 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And now on the bill as substituted, can I get a motion? All right, now the bill is before us as substituted. Is there any discussion on the bill as substituted? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 12 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And now, BL 2024-373, Porterfield, Toombs, and Gadd, a bill to be entitled the Budget Ordinance of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County for Tennessee for fiscal year 2025. I am just beaming with excitement to talk about this. Can we get a motion for the substitute? It has been moved and properly seconded, so we will discuss the substitute. Colleagues, first I want to say thank you so much for everyone who has participated in this process. As y'all know, I used to be a teacher, so I wanted to make sure that not only was this process transparent for everyone, but that everyone walked together in this process and understood everything that was happening every step of the way. I really want to thank the mayor and the administration and Director Crumbo and Finance for giving us a very solid budget and a great starting point on this budget, including the 3.5% COLA, the steps, and the merit increase. And it made my job as budget chair, which was an extremely challenging job, but it made it a lot easier because we had a good starting point. So in this substitute budget, we have several enhancements that I am proud to say that are in alignment with our city's values, the mayor's values, my values, and many of the values that we share as council members. This substitute budget increased the cost of living adjustment 0.5%, which got our Metro employees up to a 4% COLA, which keeps in line with the civil service recommendation. It also keeps in line with inflation. More than 95% of our Metro employees will be getting about a 7% increase if we pass this substitute, because again, they will be getting that 4% COLA, and they will also be getting either steps or open merit. So more than 95% of our government employees and MNPS employees will get up to an additional 7%. We are investing $1 million towards the varsity spending plan. Of that, $250,000 will go directly to our Parks Department for enriched community center programming for our youth, and $750,000 will go to create an Office of Youth Safety, which will be equipped with a director and 4 positions. One of those positions will be a liaison to run a pilot program with our Parks Department at a community center, a restorative justice position at one of our community centers, which we are looking at identifying Napier as our pilot program. And it will also include funding to address the Office of Youth Safety. This also gives more than $1 million towards indigent care. We are funding our public defender's office with additional positions. As we heard from our public defender, they need additional positions. There also needs to be some pay parity there with the DA's office. We also gave $400,000 towards indigent care through an IDEA fund to help individuals who are indigent who need that defense fund. This is also expanding our REACH program, so our commitment to alternative forms of policing. We are giving money to both our fire department as well as our health department to expand the REACH program, which allows our first responders to go out with mental health professionals. This is expanding that program to nights and weekends. We are getting additional positions for our MHRC. There are 2 positions that is being funded through this, and the name of those positions slipped me, but I will pull that up in just one second. We are giving money to the one box, creating those Narcan one boxes for individuals that may have experienced an overdose. So making sure we're addressing that. We're giving $75,000 to the competency court to be in alignment with our new state law. We are giving 2 additional housing navigators for individuals that are experiencing eviction through the eviction court. So we are funding the position for two navigators. We are funding 2 positions through our Metro Animal Control. So those were 2 much needed positions. We're giving $150,000 to the Mary Parish Center, which addresses domestic violence. We are giving $150,000 to our health department for period products for individuals who menstruate. So part of that will go to our school system. Part of that will also go with our health department and other public spaces to make sure that we have that available. We are also giving money to the Build It Right Worker Compliance Board, which is something that Councilwoman Sepulveda has been working on to help keep our employees safe. That's an additional $300,000. We are giving a small amount to both Sister Cities and Neighbor to Neighbor. We're also giving funding to the Tennessee Justice Center. We're giving $200,000 to the countywide child care study, and we are giving over $200,000 to the arts equity study. So we know that there's been a lot of conversation about being equitable with the disbursement of funds through arts. So we are giving more than $200,000 to that study. We're also giving $35,000 to the library to address language access. And I believe that is everything that is in the substitute budget. Oh, and there's also an extra $100,000 to Rafa Institute, which also addresses restorative justice. So the substitute goes from they had $59,000 to $159,000. We are allocating $20,000 to the spay and neuter clinic. The Safe Bar program was already in the budget, but we are allocating an additional $75,000 to the Safe Bar program. So in what many of our colleagues have described as our toughest budget year since COVID, we have worked extremely, extremely hard to prioritize our values, and we have done this work without sacrificing our employees, our youth, or prioritizing true community safety. And I would love if you all support this budget, and I wanted to make sure y'all had a really good understanding of everything that was in that budget. So with that, we will take any questions about, the positions, thank you. The positions for MHRC are a Civic Access Evaluation Coordinator and a Director of Just Innovation, and also additional funding for the MHRC to adjust their pay inequities as well. So with that, we will take any questions. Oh, one last thing. And we were able to do that without any additional cuts outside of the targeted savings that were already used in the mayor's budget. So we were able to do all of that without any additional cuts, without any layoffs, and without increasing our tax rate. So with that, Councilmember Huffman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. No questions. Just want to take a moment of personal privilege to thank you for all the time that you spent on this budget. You were able to thread a needle as far as I'm concerned, and you did it in a way that makes this body proud and this committee proud. So want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Huffman. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Keep them claps ready until we pass it, y'all. But thank you. I appreciate it. I take those claps as some consent. Clap it on up. All right, Council Lady Evan Siegel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I would just echo what Councilmember Huffman said. And then I just had a question, probably for finance. I noticed a lot of the savings came from like pension funds and stuff like that. Are those just because as we get closer to passing the budget, they're more exact numbers that we can rely on? How were we able to determine those savings are available?
I will recognize finance. We have, and I also want to thank Mr. Aaron Pratt, who is about to speak. Mr. Pratt was just phenomenal throughout this whole process, and he was the man that made all of these ideas come together and make all the numbers work. So, Mr. Pratt, you're recognized.
Thank you. And first, I want to say I would appreciate working with all of you over this past couple of weeks during this process. We didn't touch any of the pension funds. We touched the insurance funds. So I just wanted to make that clarification first and foremost. And it's actually thanks in partnership to legal, working with them to understand what the actuals for 2025 would be, and then some of the restoration that was done. They gave us some clarification and some ability to use those funds, but we will have to look to restore what's going to be used from the fund balance that was just replenished. So this was just a one-time use of those funds, and we will have to look to replenish those in 2026's budget. So this is it's a viable source. It's reoccurring, but we will look to make sure that we're restoring those funds because we don't want to be put back in the same situation in future years.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Council Lady Evan Siegel.
That's super helpful. And sorry, I misspoke about the funds that it came from. And that's good to know that we have to look at this going forward as well.
Thank you. So to put Mr. Pratt's words in layman's terms a little bit, because we did get a mid-year supplemental that did put more money in the administrative accounts that we were able to take this from. So we took money from some administrative accounts and put them into the departments to fund these things. But going forward, we will have to make sure to replenish those. So I just want to make sure that that is just super clear for everyone. And we also honored our fund balance policy. So we were able to stay within our fund balance policy with this. Any other questions or comments on the budget, on the substitute budget before we get to any amendments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of the substitute budget say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? All right, the substitute budget passes with 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And now we will take up the amendments. We have, our first amendment comes from Councilmember Welsh. Can we have someone on the committee to move that amendment? Councilmember Toombs, you recognize.
Chair, is it possible to have the amendment read and then ask for the motion?
Okay, you don't want Amendment 1 to be moved. Okay. All righty. All right, looking at Amendment 2, I will read it and then we can see if someone wants to move it. Amendment 2 will be amending Section 1 as follows. One moment, please. I'm going to call on Director Darby to allow her to give a description to the amendments. Director Darby, you recognize.
Excuse me. So in brief, amendment number 2 would add a 5% COLA. It would take funding, it would reduce the appropriation to the police department by $7.3 million. It would add $7 million to the pay plans. It would add $100,000 to the Nashville Public Library. It would add $60,000 to the Health Department, and it would add $40,000 to Human Resources for pay study for schools.
Thank you, Director Darby. Is there anyone who would like to move Amendment 2? All right, seeing none, going on to Amendment 3. Director Darby, can you give us a description of Amendment 3?
Certainly. Amendment number 3 would result in a 1% COLA increase. And this would it would reduce the police department by 14 million, and it would add 14 million to the pay plans.
Thank you, Director Darby. Is there anyone that would like to move Amendment 2?
3.
Excuse me, Amendment 3? All right, seeing none. Director Darby, can you explain Amendment number 4?
Amendment number 4 would reduce the funding for police department by 735,000, and it would increase funding to the community review board by 735,000.
Thank you, Director Darby. Is there anyone that would like to move Amendment 4? Councilmember Toombs, you recognize.
I'll move it, Chair.
All right, it has been moved. Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Welch, would you like to discuss your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, CM Toombs, for moving the amendment. I know I want to start any discussion tonight and was planning on by saying that I think that our substitute budget is a great budget, and I think that our budget chair did a masterful job, but I feel like that doesn't necessarily mean we might not be able to do a little bit better. And I think that there is money out there to fund things that we find important. The MNPD positions, there's almost 200 positions unfunded right now. And I don't understand the wisdom of holding on to money that we have access to and not actually putting it to use for things that are very, very important. There are many things that need to be funded, and in my final amendment, which I don't know whether or not it'll be moved or not, fund some other things that were asked for in wish lists and from other departments that I think are important. We're talking about less than $1 million. The positions in the police department have been unfilled for years, which means we've been sitting on a lot of money, and I just don't see the wisdom really of sitting on this money continuously. I think we've seen that there are allegations of some wrongdoing within our department as it relates to the CRB, and I think that it's very important that we as a body take a stand and say that we support the CRB and the mission of the CRB, and that we want to stand with the CRB and make sure that the CRB has all of the resources that they need, and hopefully they will be able to hire outside counsel, and this money can go to help hire outside counsel to help navigate this situation so that we can make this right and find out if there are in fact bad seeds within our department and make sure that our CRB is able to do the best that they can do with the limited scope of the mission per what the state has turned them into. So I feel like it's important that we don't just let money sit on the table when it can be put to good use. So I ask my colleagues to please support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Welsh. We're going to go to finance to allow finance to talk about the fiscal impact, and then I saw Council Lady Johnston, and then I saw Vice Chair Toombs. Mr. Pratt, you're recognized.
Thank you. With this request and looking at the modifications that Community Review Board have put forth, I can't tie the amount that's in this amount to anything that they requested. In total, I'm looking at they requested $683,000 worth of modifications. So this amount is kind of higher, or is higher than what we have for actually what was submitted. In addition to police, they have the majority of what we will consider for the cost savings or the budget adjustment plan. So any reduction to police kind of destabilizes what we will be seeking for our overall budget adjustment savings plan. The larger departments and the vacancies are key critical from day one to make sure that we start off on a really good foot. So these vacancies, although they're vacant, we would do the true-up process with the department, all departments, make sure that we start out with a plan, and them having that many vacancies puts us at a really good position from day one to make sure that overall Metro, we meet our objective of the $18 million that's needed to balance our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. How much money, and I guess this is a question for the administration, how much money did the CRB request this year?
Mr. Pratt, you're recognized.
In modification requests, it's $683,300.
And what's in the budget?
Their total budget, just 1 second, please. Yeah. 2.1 million. And they also do have some monies, 200 and something thousand in the admin account because them and other departments had moved to new facilities. So in the first year, public property, the Division of Public Property within Finance has a budget of about 11 or so million dollars that covers a lot of rents for these departments.
Okay, so the CRB is well-funded, is what we're saying in this existing budget, correct?
Yes, they received additional budget over their base budget from this current fiscal year.
Okay. I also want to, and I'm happy to have Deputy Chief Gilder come up and explain, but the way that the police department works, I think it's really important for us to understand that those positions remain unfilled even when we have folks going through the academy. Like, they don't fill the position until they're actually sworn officers. So that takes quite a bit of time. And we have several different classes that come through with varying numbers of people. But if the police department doesn't have a certain amount of money in order to continue to recruit, to have that pipeline coming in, it's kind of like anybody in here in sales, right? You always got to have something in your pipeline. So that's what that pipeline is for. The police department is not sending back millions of dollars every year because, oh, we're just not filling these positions. They are filling these positions, but it takes, again, quite a bit of time. It's not like somebody in Parks or in NDOT that we hire and boom, that's a filled position right then and there, even though they're training. The police academy is what, 6 months? It's a 6 months, and then they also have a year where they are like in training. I don't know what the terminology is. Is it filled after they're out of the academy, or is it filled after they are able to be on the streets by themselves?
If you could address me, Council Lady. No,
I'm sorry.
no worries. Deputy Chief Gilder, if you would like to respond to that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's correct. So we hire them as police officer trainees. That's about a 6-month period. And then they transition to a PO1 position, which is a sworn officer, but they are not free to ride on their own. They ride with a field training officer for a 6-month period. So it's a full year before you get to a PO2 police officer position.
And so when is it a quote unquote filled position?
The PO2 position that is vacant, which we're at about a 150, is the what?
Okay,
is
so
that-
it's an entire year. It's an entire year from the time that they step into the academy first day until they are actually a filled position. So they have to have those dollars in order to continue to recruit. We can't recruit folks to come into our classes if we don't have the money to pay them that year later. So that's where that lag time is. And I think we discuss this every year. And it is sort of a hard thing to wrap your head around because it's easy to say, well, we hired somebody, so it's a filled position. But with the police department, it's not that way. And I would assume fire is the same way. So I would encourage my colleagues to vote against this amendment, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. Council Lady Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, for this upcoming fiscal year, the work group that was established to look at vacant positions didn't get off the ground in time. And so hopefully that group, which I'm leading, will have the opportunity to really dive into vacant positions and look at how departments are using those and if there's some opportunities for right sizing. Because the truth of the matter is that unused funds do go into the fund balance every year, and it's not $3, it's millions of dollars. And so there is opportunity to study whether or not that money is better used. I am just seeing this request today in the amendments packet. Pretty much every department asks for more money for fiscal year 25. Because of the targeted savings request from the administration, a lot of departments agreed to work with what they had. Those departments that felt like they couldn't do that reached out to the Budget and Finance Committee. They came before us for our budget hearings and asked for additional funds. And pretty much all of those departments in some form or fashion made it into the substitute budget. It's hard to say at the last minute, oh, this $735,000 request is appropriate, particularly when it doesn't match the budget request that was submitted for the $683,000. And then when you're talking about cutting funds from a department, even though I am the biggest advocate about the phantom, non-existent people that departments try to hold on to, there's not enough time to really study what the impact of that is to MMPD. And MMPD is on my list of departments that carry vacancies from year to year, but I have not had the opportunity to really study what the impact of this cut is. I think we all support the CRB. We understand that voters voted for the COB and it got changed into the CRB. That is not the issue here. It's, for me, getting a last minute request and then being asked to cut a department, and I don't know what the impact of that is. And so it's hard for me to support it, even though I wanted to bring it to the floor, because again, we all care about the CRB and making sure they have the funding that they need to be able to do the job that they were actually, the voters voted for them to do. And I know that some of the departments in MMPD, they said during their budget hearing that in order to make that targeted savings work, that they're using salary savings. I know MMPD uses a lot of salary savings to pay for overtime. So I don't know what this cut would look like for them, even though they do have a large budget. I don't deny that, but I don't know what the impact of the $735,000. It doesn't seem like much, but it could have a significant impact on them. We just don't know. And I don't know if there's enough time to even find that out.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just, to that point, I wanted to see if there was, if someone, and maybe it's Deputy Chief Gilder or maybe it's someone from the administration. I know we're trying to staff out the new Southeast precinct. So I'm wondering if we were to take FTE's positions away, if that would affect that obviously hard fought for precinct for years and years, if that would be an issue, or if it would come from overtime, which we obviously spend a lot of overtime with our police department because we don't have enough officers to do the job. Would it be fair to ask whomever can answer that? And they may not be able to answer the question, but I just think it's worth pointing out those two big things.
Mr. Pratt, if you would like to respond, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yes, I'll respond. So in finance, we do position control, and I can tell you that if the positions weren't there, the monies weren't there, we would have them unauthorize those positions. So in some way, shape, or form, positions would go away. We would make sure that those positions are reduced, but they still would be held to the budget adjustment savings plan target that's set out. In addition to, we would have to try and work with them because we do know that, positions unfilled means overtime increases, and we see that every single year. So yeah, we would have to adjust for overtime increases and give some allowances there.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Mr. Cortez, Councilmember Cortez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. And this question is for the administration or Deputy Chief Gilder. We are on track to fill all those unfilled positions by the end of the year or maybe first quarter next year. Is that accurate?
Deputy Chief Gilder, you're recognized. The question was, are we on track to fill those unfilled positions?
We are currently running 8 academy classes a year. We actually have today 4 academy classes, the most I've ever heard of. I've seen 3 academy classes running at once, but we actually have, effective today, 4 academy classes running right now. So we are in a constant state of recruitment and training in order to meet and fill out those positions. It is our hope to fill all those out. We're in the same recruitment situation that people are nationwide. We have been making gains in that regard. And so, yes, we are hopeful to fill those through this fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I did have a question that written down about the hiring of the outside counsel. My understanding is that no department can do that without Metro Legal's approval. Can someone, either Director Darby or someone from the Metro Legal, answer that? Can a department hire their own counsel?
Director Darby, you're recognized.
I can give an answer, and I would ask Tom to also answer if he has something different to say. But typically, departments can't hire their own counsel or their own attorneys for the purposes of representing in a legal capacity the department. The charter requires that all legal work for the metropolitan government be done by the Department of Law. That does not mean that a department can't hire an attorney to work in their office, just not for the purposes of legal representation.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make an additional comment. Given the late hour of this request, I'm struggling with it because I want to be in support because I support the CRB, obviously. I just don't know if there's enough time to really flesh this out. So I am going to be abstaining on this.
Thank you, Councilmember Toombs. Do we have any additional conversation? Seeing none on Councilmember Welch's amendment 4, all those in favor say aye. Any opposing, nay. Any abstentions not voting? We have 1, 2, 3 abstentions of not, 3 not voting, 1 yes, and everyone else is a no. So we have 13 people present, so that's 9 no's. So chair voted aye. We had 9 against. We had 3 not voting, so motion fails. Councilmember Welch says she was not moving number 5. Director Darby, could you speak to number 6, please?
Yes. So number 6, this amendment would reduce the appropriation to the police department by $690,000, and it would add to the public library $100,000, to community education $500,000, to the health department for spaying and neutering $50,000, and to human resources for a pay study $40,000.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move this amendment? All right, seeing none. Director Darby, could you please explain amendment number 7?
Amendment number 7 would move the $3,263,200 from arts grants to the Arts Commission operating appropriation, and it would also move the contingency note that follows that appropriation. So it moves from an admin account into a departmental account.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move this amendment? All right, that was also not moved. So colleagues, just to bring everybody back up to speed, right now we have the substitute budget before us. None of the amendments passed. They either were not moved or they failed. So at this point, we are looking at the budget as substituted. Is there any additional discussion on the substituted budget? Seeing none,
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? The substitute budget passes, 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. So we will vote on this budget tomorrow. The next item is BL 2024-374 Porterfield, establishes the tax levy in the General Services District for fiscal year 2024-2025 and declaring the amount required for the annual operating budget of the Urban Services District pursuant to Section 6.07 of the Metro Charter. Can I get a motion? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions, anyone not voting? Motion carries, 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. The last one right here, then we got to jump back to 1, 2, and 3. BL 2024-376, Porterfield, Bradford, Ellis, Gad. Creates the positions of 311 call center manager, 311 call center supervisor, criminal intelligence analyst 1, criminal intelligence analyst 2, criminal intelligence unit manager, criminal intelligence unit supervisor, family safety advocate senior, helicopter mechanic supervisor, industrial control system specialist, logistics specialist, office of family safety assistant director, police assistant chief, risk and compliance manager, service and security officer 1, service and security officer 2, waste services assistant director, waste services director, youth case manager 1, youth case manager 2, youth case manager 3, and zoning examiner. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries, 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And now we are back to agenda items 1, 2, and 3. Director Darby, can those be taken together? Okay, all right. RS 2024-482, Porterfield Bradford adopts a new pay plan for the general employees of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, excluding employees of the Board of Health, Board of Education, and Police and Fire Departments effective July 1, 2024. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. I will be moving my amendment, or can someone move my amendment? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on this amendment? This amendment gets us from the 3.5% COLA to the 4% COLA. Is that correct, Director Darby? Yes. All right. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposing? Anyone not voting? We have 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Director Darby, I'm assuming that we don't need to move these amendments since they were contingent upon the... I see. Okay, so we will still take up amendments 2 and 3. The sponsor just left, so I'm not sure if she wants us to. Okay, we are just getting confirmation to see if the sponsor of those amendments wants us to move them. Council Lady Bush, if you just give me a thumbs up on if you intend to move these. Okay. All right. So the second amendment, Director Darby, can you explain what the second amendment does?
Yes, the Second Amendment would increase the COLA to 1%, a 1% increase, if the corresponding amendment to the budget for a 5% increase were adopted tomorrow night on the floor.
Thank you, Director Darby. Would anyone like to move this amendment? All right, seeing none, Director Darby, can you explain Amendment 3?
Amendment 3 is in the same posture, except it would increase the COLA by 1.5% if the corresponding amendment to the budget were adopted.
Thank you, Director Darby. Would anyone like to move Amendment 3? Seeing none, that amendment was not moved. So now we have Amendment 1 on RS 2024-482. Is there any discussion on 482 as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions, anyone not voting? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. RS 2024-483, Porterfield, Bradford, and Evans, adopts a new pay plan for employees for the Metropolitan Department of Police and Fire effective July 1, 2024. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Can someone move Amendment 1? It has been moved and properly seconded. Again, Amendment 1 is getting the COLA up to 4%, so it's adding an additional 0.5%. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions, anyone not voting? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Director Darby, can you explain Amendment 2?
Yes, like the last resolution, Amendment number 2 would increase the COLA to by 1% if the corresponding budget amendment were adopted.
Thank you, Director Darby. Is there anyone that wants to move Amendment 2? Seeing none, Director Darby, will you explain Amendment 3?
Amendment 3 would increase the COLA by 1.5% if the corresponding budget amendment were adopted.
Thank you, Director Darby. Is there anyone who would like to move Amendment 3? Seeing none, we now have 483 as amended with Amendment 1. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed or anyone not voting? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against. Lastly, we have RS 2024-484, Porterfield, Bradford, and Evans adopts a new pay plan for employees of the Metropolitan Board of Health effective July 1, 2024. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Will someone move Amendment 1? Thank you. Is there a second? It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Again, this gets the COLA to 4%. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against. Director Darby, can you explain amendment number 2?
I can. Much like the prior two resolutions, amendment number 2 would increase the COLA to 1% if the corresponding budget amendment is adopted.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move amendment 2? Seeing none, Director Darby, will you explain amendment number 3?
Amendment number 3 would increase the COLA to 1.5% if the corresponding budget amendment is adopted.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move amendment 3? Seeing none, it was not moved. So now we have 484 as amended with amendment 1. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions or anyone not voting? Motion carries 13 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.